Life advice will leave you speechless. You live like tomorrow is promised, like your next breath is a guarantee. But I want to tell you something, not to scare you, but to awaken you. Every second you waste is a second you never get back. Life is not a rehearsal. This is it. This is all you get. The world will pat you on the back while you walk off a cliff. It'll tell you you're enough, that you should chase your heart, that comfort is the goal and pain is the enemy. But hear me, truth doesn't flatter, it cuts, it wounds, and then it heals. A sobering wake-up call is rarely gentle. It doesn't arrive wrapped in silk or delivered with a smile. It crashes through the door when you're least expecting it, uninvited, unapologetic, and deeply necessary. It grabs you by the collar and shakes everything you thought you knew, and often it doesn't speak with words. It speaks through the silence of a hospital room, the stillness of a casket, the ache in your chest when you realize you've wasted years chasing things that never really mattered. Most people live like they've got forever. That's the tragedy. We move through life as if we're promised old age, as if we'll have time later to get things right, to say sorry, to finally live with intention. But the clock doesn't tick on your schedule, it doesn't consult your plans, and when it strikes, there's no negotiation, no second chances, no please wait. One day, the breath you just took will be your last. That's not meant to scare you, that's meant to wake you up. You see, we've been lulled to sleep, numbed, distracted, pacified by endless scrolling, constant noise, shallow entertainment, and the comforting lie that if we just keep busy enough, we won't have to face what's real. But reality doesn't wait for you to be ready, it comes, and when it does, it exposes everything. What you loved, what you lived for, what you believed, what you ran from. It lays your life bare, and suddenly you see that all the things you chased, status, money, approval, image are smoke. Empty, gone. Some people spend their whole lives building up their image like a tower, brick by brick. They want to look successful, look wise, look happy, but inside, there's a hollow place they never talk about. A gnawing feeling that something's missing, that there's more, that maybe, just maybe, this isn't what they were made for. But it's easy to ignore that voice when the world keeps clapping for you. When they applaud your mask, why take it off? Why be honest when pretending gets you ahead? Because one day, pretending won't be enough. One day, the applause will fade, the career will end, the looks will go, and you'll be left alone with the truth of your life. That's when the wake-up call hits, and the pain of that moment, when you realize you spent years climbing a ladder only to find it was leaning against the wrong wall, is something no success story can fix. What most people call success is often just another form of sleepwalking. You're alive, but not really, breathing, but not awake, going through the motions, filling your days with noise and activity, but underneath it all, there's no depth. No direction, no fire, just busyness, just survival, and somewhere deep down you know it, you feel it, it haunts you in the quiet, it follows you when you're alone, that still, small voice that keeps asking, is this it? That question isn't your enemy, it's your wake-up call, and it's not there to shame you, it's not there to crush you, it's there to pull you out of the fog, to tear down the illusion, to force you to see what you've been running from, that life is a gift, and it's passing faster than you think. Every breath, every hour, every heartbeat, it's all counting down. You don't get to pause it. You don't get a do-over, and you don't know how much is left. The truth is, we don't live like we're dying. We live like we're invincible, like we've got time to waste. We chase distractions, argue about nonsense, hold grudges, stay bitter, waste energy on things that don't last. We delay the things that matter because the lie tells us you've got time. But how do you know? How do you know you'll wake up tomorrow? You don't. You just assume, and that assumption is a deadly one. Some people will never wake up. They'll go to their grave never having truly lived. Never having stopped long enough to ask, what am I here for? Why was I given this life? They'll drown in comfort, in entertainment, in the safety of surface-level living, all the while missing the deeper reality that they were made for something far more powerful than convenience or comfort. They were made to wake up. There's a kind of clarity that only comes through disruption, when the things you rely on break, when the person you thought would always be there is gone, when your plans fall apart and the world doesn't make sense anymore. That pain, it's not pointless. That silence, it's not empty. That heartbreak, it might be the very thing that saves you. Because when life shatters your illusion of control, you finally see the truth. You never had control to begin with. And in that moment, you're given a choice to keep pretending or to finally wake up. This is not about being morbid. This is not about doom and gloom. This is about clarity, urgency, reality. The wake-up call doesn't come to condemn you. It comes to call you higher, to shake you out of apathy, to burn away the lies that have kept you numb. It's not about fear, it's about freedom. But freedom never feels good at first, because it means letting go of the lies you've held on to for comfort. And make no mistake, it will cost you something to wake up. Comfort will resist. Pride will scream. Your ego will beg you to stay asleep, to stay small, to keep pretending. But you're not here to sleep. You're not here to float. You're not here to waste the short, sacred breath you've been given. You're here to live, and living, truly living, requires you to face the hard questions, to stare truth in the face, to stop running, because the world is full of people who are alive but not awake, and you can spend your whole life with your eyes open, but your soul asleep. The sobering wake-up call isn't meant for someone else. It's meant for you, right now, in this moment, before it's too late. There's something dangerous about a lie that sounds beautiful, something seductive about a promise that strokes your ego, that tells you what you want to hear, that lets you stay exactly where you are and feel good about it. The world is full of those kinds of promises. They're polished, popular, easy to swallow, and the reason they're everywhere is simple. Because they sell, they make you feel safe, they make you feel powerful. They tell you you're enough, you're perfect, you don't need to change, you deserve everything you want. But what if I told you those promises are killing you? The most dangerous lies aren't the ones shouted in hatred. They're the ones whispered in comfort. They wrap themselves in just enough truth to sound convincing, but underneath they rot your soul. They tell you that you can chase your desires and never count the cost. They say that pain is to be avoided at all costs, that discipline is oppression, that sacrifice is outdated, that truth is whatever you want it to be, but deep down you know that's not right. Something in you stirs. Something resists, because we weren't built for comfort. We were built for meaning, and meaning doesn't come easy. The hard truth is this: not everything that feels good is good for you, and not everything that hurts is bad. But we live in a culture that's allergic to discomfort. We're told that struggle is a sign of failure, that brokenness is weakness, that anything less than happiness must be fixed with distraction, medication, or a shiny new goal. We numb ourselves to reality with entertainment, ambition, or endless scrolling because facing the truth feels too heavy. But what if that heaviness is the very thing that sets you free? You can't grow in a lie. You can't become who you are made to be while holding on to a fantasy of who you think you are. But that's what the false promises offer. They offer a shortcut. They promise you can have success without discipline, love without commitment, identity without accountability. And when they fail, and they always do, you're left more empty than before, more confused, more lost. But instead of facing that pain, we chase the next promise, the next high, the next illusion. It's a vicious cycle. Hard truths, though, they don't lie to you, they don't flatter, they don't care about your feelings, they care about your freedom. They come in like a storm, tearing down the weak structures you've built. They don't ask for permission, they demand change, they demand honesty, and they'll hurt you before they heal you, but they will heal you. The truth says you're not the center of the universe, that you're not always right, that you've made mistakes, serious ones, that you've hurt people, that you've run from responsibility, that there are parts of you that need to die so something better can come alive, and that's not cruel. That's mercy, because when you face that, when you let the truth confront you, humble you, reshape you, you become real. There's a kind of strength that only truth can build. It's not flashy, it doesn't always win applause. But it lasts, it stands when the storm hits, and storms will come. The promises of this world crumble under pressure. They sound good in a motivational speech or a viral quote, but they don't carry you when your world falls apart. They don't hold you together when the money runs out, when the diagnosis comes, when the relationship ends. Only truth can do that. Only truth anchors you when everything else gives way. You can live your whole life believing false promises, building a house on sand, hoping it never rains. But the rain always comes, the wind always blows, and when it does, you'll find out what you've built your life on. Was it comfort? Was it applause? Was it control? Or was it something deeper, something real, something unshakable? Most people don't reject truth because it's unclear. They reject it because it's uncomfortable, because it demands something from them. It calls them higher. It says, you can't stay here. You can't keep doing what you're doing and expect to thrive. Truth costs you something, your pride, your illusions, your excuses, but it gives you something better, something eternal, a foundation that can't be moved. There's a price to every path. The path of lies costs you your soul, little by little. It's slow, it's subtle, and by the time you notice, it's often too late. But the path of truth, it costs you up front. It hurts, it exposes, it humbles, but it heals, it restores, it transforms, it wakes you up. You have to decide which one you want, the easy promise or the hard truth, the applause of the crowd or the peace of a clear conscience, the mask or the mirror. One will make you feel good for a while. The other will change you forever, and you don't get both. You weren't meant to live in illusion. You weren't meant to be comfortable all the time. You were meant to grow, to fight, to rise. And that begins when you stop chasing promises that pamper your ego and start embracing truths that call out your potential. You don't become stronger by avoiding the hard stuff. You become stronger by walking through it with your eyes wide open, your heart exposed, and your soul willing to be shaped. No one drifts into truth by accident. You have to fight for it. You have to choose it when it's unpopular, when it costs you friends, when it breaks your heart. But it's worth it, every time, because in the end, truth doesn't just change your life, it saves it. And that's something no false promise can ever do. We've been taught to avoid pain at all costs. We've been told that suffering is a mistake, that struggle means failure, and that if life is hard, something must be wrong. But that's not true, not even close. Some of the most powerful things you'll ever learn, some of the deepest growth you'll ever experience, will only come through suffering. It's not a flaw in the system, it is the system. Suffering isn't an accident, it's a tool, it's a teacher, and without it, you will never become who you were meant to be. Nobody asks for pain. Nobody wakes up hoping to struggle. But pain has a way of reaching places in us that comfort never could. Struggle breaks things in us, yes, but only so something stronger can be rebuilt in its place. You don't become wise by coasting through easy days. You don't gain depth of soul by being entertained. You don't develop endurance, compassion, or character by avoiding hardship. You learn those things in the fire, in the valley, in the silence of unanswered questions, and the ache of not knowing why. We live in a culture that worships ease. It praises instant results, quick fixes, and comfort at every turn. But easy doesn't build anything that lasts. Show me someone with real strength, and I'll show you someone who's suffered. Someone who's walked through darkness and didn't quit. Someone who's been broken and chose to keep going. That kind of strength isn't given, it's earned. It's carved out of you in the hard places of life. Struggle is where your faith gets tested. Not just faith in God, but faith in yourself, in the purpose of your life, in the possibility that something good could come from something terrible. And if you stay in the struggle, if you don't run, if you don't numb yourself, if you don't fake a smile and pretend everything's fine, you begin to change, you begin to see differently, you begin to live with more weight, more presence, more reality. Because you've been through the fire, and the fire left something holy in you. Some of the most beautiful things in life grow out of brokenness. Seeds don't flourish unless they're buried. Gold doesn't shine until it's refined. Diamonds aren't made in peace, they're formed under pressure. So why would we believe we should live untouched by pain, unshaken by loss, unchallenged by life? That's not how transformation works. That's not how strength is built. Pain has a way of removing what's unnecessary. It strips you down to what's real. It makes you let go of your pride, your illusions, your sense of control. It humbles you, it quiets you, it forces you to see the truth about yourself and the world. And while that process is brutal, it's also sacred, because what's left after the struggle is often more honest, more grateful, more alive. When everything's going well, we tend to forget who we are. We chase shallow things, we get distracted, we think we're in control, but when suffering shows up, suddenly all the noise fades. You start asking different questions, real questions. What actually matters? Who can I trust? What kind of life am I building? Is this all there is? Those are the kinds of questions that change your life, and they usually don't come until the bottom falls out. Suffering has a strange way of revealing your foundations. When everything is stripped away, when the applause dies down and the comfort is gone, you find out what you really believe. You find out where your hope is. You find out whether the ground you're standing on is solid, or just sand that felt good beneath your feet until the storm came. But here's the thing, you won't know how much strength you have until you're forced to use it. You won't know what kind of fire lives in you until everything around you starts to burn, and when it does, you'll either run or you'll rise. That's why struggle is necessary, because it gives you the chance to rise, not in spite of the pain, but because of it. It's in the very place you think you're being destroyed that something new begins to form. Something unshakable, something eternal. That doesn't mean suffering is easy. It's not. It tears you open. It brings you to the end of yourself. It leaves scars, but scars tell a story. That you survived, that you kept going, that you didn't quit when you had every reason to. And that story is one this world needs to hear. Not stories of perfection or ease, but stories of people who faced the storm and came out with their soul intact. Some people spend their whole lives avoiding pain. They stay on the surface, play it safe, never let life cut too deep. But in doing so, they miss the depth. They miss the beauty that only comes on the other side of brokenness. Because the truth is, you don't really know someone until you've seen what they've suffered. And you don't really know yourself until you've walked through the kind of struggle that leaves you changed forever. There are lessons you can only learn in the dark. There are treasures that are only found in the valley. And sometimes, the very thing you prayed would never happen becomes the place where you finally meet what's real about God, about yourself, about life. That's not an accident. That's not punishment. That's grace. A fierce kind of grace that doesn't protect you from pain, but walks with you through it and leads you into something deeper than you ever imagined. If you're suffering right now, if you're in the middle of something that feels too heavy, too painful, too impossible, don't believe the lie that says it's all for nothing. It's not. There's something happening in you that comfort could never produce. There's a depth being formed, a strength being born, a fire being lit, and one day you'll look back and realize that this wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of something new, something real. Something that couldn't have come any other way. There is a truth that will offend your pride before it sets you free. Your life is not your own. It never was. It was given to you, breathed into you. Formed with intention, crafted with purpose, and handed to you not as a possession to control, but as a responsibility to steward. That's not the message the world will give you. The world will tell you that you are the center, that everything revolves around you, that your dreams, your plans, your desires are what matter most. And if anyone or anything stands in the way of that, you have a right to remove it. That's the lie. A clever, flattering lie that feels good until it doesn't, because deep down, when the lights go off and the noise fades, you know, this life is too heavy, too sacred, too full of meaning to belong to you alone. We don't like the idea of limits. We don't want to be accountable to anything higher than ourselves. We want autonomy without responsibility. We want freedom without consequence. But real life doesn't work that way. The truth is, you were made by something beyond you, for something beyond you. You are not an accident. You're not random. You are part of a story so much bigger than your comfort or your ambitions. And that's both terrifying and freeing. Terrifying because it means you're not in control. Freeing because it means you don't have to be. We live as if we are self, made, as if we woke up and gave ourselves breath, as if we built our own hearts and wired our own souls. But you didn't choose to be born. You didn't decide the year, the place, the body, the family. That wasn't your doing. And yet here you are, alive, conscious, aware, walking through this strange and beautiful world with the ability to think, to choose, to love, to create. That's not an accident, that's a gift. And when something is a gift, it doesn't belong to you. It's entrusted to you. We've lost reverence for life because we think we own it. We think we have the right to do whatever we want with our bodies, our time, our choices. But if your life was given to you, then the question isn't what do I want to do with it? The question is what was it given to me for? That shift changes everything. It moves you from entitlement to gratitude, from control to surrender, from aimlessness to purpose. Because when you realize your life is not your own, you stop asking, how can I get more? And you start asking, how can I give more? How can I serve? How can I live this life in a way that honors the one who gave it to me? That's a hard truth to swallow in a culture built on self. We're told that fulfillment comes from following our hearts, from chasing every desire, from doing whatever makes us happy. But what happens when your desires lead you into emptiness? What happens when chasing what you want leaves you more broken than before? We were never meant to be our own gods. We were never designed to carry the weight of creating our own meaning. That's why people are exhausted. That's why they're anxious and afraid, because deep down they know they're not enough. They can't save themselves. They weren't meant to. To live as if your life is your own is to carry a burden you were never built to bear. It leads to pride when things go right and despair when things fall apart. It makes you think you have to prove your worth, earn your identity, justify your existence through success or status or appearance. But when you understand your life is not your own, you stop striving to be something and you start surrendering to the one who already called you worthy before you ever achieved anything. This kind of surrender isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's not giving up, it's waking up. It's the moment you realize that control was always an illusion, that every breath is borrowed, that every heartbeat is mercy. And that the most powerful thing you can do with your life is give it back to the people who need love, to the work that matters, to the truth that doesn't change. There's a kind of freedom that only comes when you stop trying to write your own story and start asking what part you were meant to play in a greater one. When you stop measuring your life by what you get and start measuring it by what you give. When you stop clinging to control and start walking in trust. That kind of life is rare, it's radical, but it's real, it has weight, it has meaning. It has peace, not the peace of everything going your way, but the peace of knowing you're exactly where you need to be, doing what you were born to do. You are not an island, your choices ripple, your actions echo. The way you live affects more than just you. That's the beauty and the weight of being alive. You were made with intention, and your life is speaking every day, in every word, in every decision. The only question is, what is it saying? Is it pointing back to you, or is it pointing beyond you, to something higher, truer, deeper? People spend their entire lives trying to find themselves, trying to discover their purpose, trying to answer the ache inside that says, there has to be more than this. And there is, but you won't find it by looking inward forever. You find it by letting go, by realizing that your story doesn't begin and end with you, that you were created with meaning by a creator who wrote eternity on your heart. This life isn't about making your name great. It's about making your days count. It's about realizing that love, truth, grace, justice, those things are bigger than your plans, bigger than your comfort, bigger than your brand. And when you stop trying to be the author of your own life and start being a faithful steward of the life you were given, something changes, the weight lifts, the fear fades, because you know, this life is not mine, but I know who it belongs to. And that changes everything. There's a lie that keeps so many people stuck, and it's this: I've got time. Time to fix it later. Time to change tomorrow. Time to get serious when it's convenient. We treat life like it's a dress rehearsal, like we can put things off indefinitely, and somehow everything will fall into place when we're finally ready. But the hard truth is, time doesn't wait for you. Change delayed is change denied. And the longer you wait, the harder it gets. The clock is ticking, and you don't know how many ticks are left. Most people don't change because they think they don't have to, not yet. They know something's wrong. They feel the weight of compromise, the ache of regret, the pull of conviction, but they convince themselves that later is good enough. They say, let me enjoy myself first. Let me get through this season. Let me get a little more comfortable, a little more stable, a little more successful. But what if later never comes? What if the window you're standing in now isn't going to be open forever? Change is never easy. It costs something, it hurts. That's why people avoid it. But what hurts more is waking up one day and realizing you missed your moment, that you waited too long, that the thing you were supposed to confront years ago has now hardened into a pattern. That the thing you were supposed to leave behind is now part of your identity, that the person you were meant to become got buried under excuses and distractions. The urgency of change isn't about panic, it's about clarity. It's about seeing life for what it really is, short, fragile, sacred. You are not promised tomorrow. You are not promised one more breath, and yet we live like we'll live forever. We gamble with our future. We push off the hard conversations, the deep work, the uncomfortable choices, because it's easier to stay the same. But what you don't change now will cost you later, and sometimes the cost is more than you're willing to pay. There are seasons when the voice calling you to change is loud. It's clear, it cuts through the noise. You know you can't keep living like this. You know the road you're on ends in pain. You know the habits, the mindset, the compromise, the anger, the pride it's destroying you. And in those moments, you have a choice. Will you listen? Will you move? Will you finally take the step you've been avoiding? Because ignoring that voice doesn't make it go away. It just makes your heart harder. It just makes the change deeper, more painful, more costly when it finally comes. You don't drift into transformation, you fight for it. You make a decision that says, I won't waste another day pretending this is fine. I won't live another moment halfway in, halfway out. I'm done making peace with what's slowly killing me. That kind of urgency doesn't come from fear, it comes from vision. From seeing the life that's possible on the other side of obedience, from realizing that your purpose is too important to keep sleeping through your days. Some of the most pivotal moments in life aren't loud. They're quiet. It's the still sacred moment when you realize you're at a crossroads. And deep down you know, if I don't do something now, I may never do it. That's where change begins. Not with noise, not with fanfare, but with honesty. Brutal honesty about where you are, where you're headed, and what needs to happen today to stop the drift. Not next month, not when it's easier, not when everything's perfect now. There is no perfect time to change. There is only time, and it's passing. The longer you live disconnected from who you were created to be, the more distant the person becomes. The longer you ignore the promptings in your soul, the quieter they get. You don't have unlimited chances. That's not how life works. Sometimes the door doesn't swing open again. Sometimes the opportunity doesn't return. That's why urgency matters, because you don't know what hangs in the balance of your obedience today. You don't know who you're becoming in the process. You don't know what pain you're avoiding down the road by facing the hard things now. We spend so much time managing our image, chasing distractions, numbing the discomfort, that we miss the moments when we're supposed to wake up. And when you numb the urgency to change, you also numb the beauty of what that change can bring. Growth doesn't happen on accident. Transformation doesn't sneak up on you. It's a choice. Every single day, it's a choice to step toward who you're meant to be, to lay down the old, to break the pattern, to silence the lies, to confront the truth. People who live with urgency don't wait for life to hand them clarity. They seek it, they lean in, they ask the hard questions, they look in the mirror and stop pretending. They don't need a crisis to wake up. They choose to wake up before one ever hits. They live like this moment matters because it does. And the irony is, the more urgently you live, the more peace you find. Not chaos, not panic. Peace because you're no longer hiding, no longer running, no longer pretending that tomorrow is guaranteed. The cost of delay is high. What you avoid now doesn't disappear. It grows, and one day it demands attention on its own terms. But when you live with urgency, you take back your power. You don't wait for rock bottom. You rise before the crash. You lead your life instead of letting it lead you. You make the uncomfortable decision today, so you're not forced into a crisis tomorrow. This isn't about fear, it's about reverence. Reverence for the life you've been given, reverence for time, reverence for the reality that you don't get to start over, you don't get to rewind the tape. All you have is right now, and that's enough if you use it. If you stop delaying, if you start living like the change you need isn't optional, but essential, the urgency of change isn't a burden, it's a gift, it's a wake-up call, it's a holy disruption that shakes you out of your slumber and into your purpose. It doesn't shout because it's angry, it whispers because it loves you, and if you listen, really listen, you'll realize that the most dangerous place to be is not in pain, not in failure, not in loss. The most dangerous place to be is in comfort, when comfort keeps you from becoming who you were made to be, and there's no more time to waste.